let's start from here. President Mahama has reiterated the illegality of the doctors' strike. Now, he is saying that the strike is simply against laid-down procedures under the labor laws of the country. He was speaking on an Accra-based radio station.
Nobody must die because of an illegal strike. The strike is illegal, absolutely illegal. Let's look at the factors. Doctors ask for conditions of service. Of course, all workers need conditions of service. It's not like it existed and we took it away. It's the first time it's being introduced. It takes a process of negotiation to put those conditions of service in place. Even before the negotiation has ended, the GMA has taken several months to draw up their conditions of service. And then they give it to government and say, here are our demands for conditions of service. We give you up to 29th. If you don't grant it, we're going on strike. And they start a strike. Even when negotiations are taking place, the labor law says that nobody should negotiate under duress. And that is what has led us to where we've always come back to. Somebody says, oh, doctors, just give it to them. But their linkages have come to learn in the whole relativity of our pay structure. Doctors are linked to health workers, and it's not on doctors alone who are in the business of giving help to people. You have the nurses, you have the midwives, you have the x-ray technicians, you have the laboratory technicians, you have the pharmacists, you even have the cleaners. When blood drops on the ground, that cleaner who takes the mop and knows how to disinfect it and clean it in a safe manner is contributing to healthcare. We cannot single out one group of the health workers and accede to those demands. Then what of the midwives? What of the pharmacists? What of the other people? And then even when you get out of healthcare, what of the engineers? What of the architects? And so it's not as simple as it is. It's not about 2,800 doctors. It's about another 5,900 and something who are waiting to see what the linkages are and say, okay, you give doctors this, all right. We too are demanding this. And they can also go on strike.
But people are dying, Your Excellency.
We're taking remedial action. We're asking the doctors to go back. And I'm saying they should go back while we continue the negotiations.
Okay, we'll tell you more about that particular incident, but let's come to the studio and speak to Mr. Samuel Agbuche. He is a human rights activist and executive director of IDEC. He's joined me in the studio on this issue of the doctor's salary freeze, and we'll try and take a look at the human rights perspective. Mr. Agbuche, grateful. And let's start from here. Doctors are simply denying citizens human rights, their right to health care. And from where you sit, can the citizen take an action against the medical doctors?
Yes, they can, and all other players in the industry of the health, not only the doctors,
right?
Any other persons whose action or inaction might have cause life or might have infringed on the right of any citizens could go to court. In fact, when you read the 1992 Constitution, Article 23, it says that any administrative body acting on behalf of the state should act fairly. So if any action of these government representatives or stakeholders in the health sector, in the view of anybody that the actions has infringed on their right, could go to court and seek for redress.
So the like you said, the stakeholders could sue the doctors as well as the employers, because
yes.
The employers' responsibility is to provide health care for the citizens.
Yes.
Now, if through their actions or inactions, the doctors are on strike, can jointly sue the two?
Yes, assuming, let's use the National Health Insurance, for example. I have signed up to the National Health Insurance. The agreement is that I go to the hospital. When I pay to the National Health Insurance, I was given a card that gives me the authority or the permission to go to court, to go to the hospital and seek for medical care as and when I need it.
Right.
So I show up at the hospital, and there was nobody at the hospital to attend to me. So therefore, I have to find out. I have to ask, why? Because I have paid, you have given me the card to go to the hospital. And I show up at the hospital and there's nobody there. And in the process, I die or I lost a relative or a friend or whoever. Then I have to go to the court for the court to call the people involved who are supposed to give me the health care to explain to me why the hospital is empty. Because if I knew the hospital would be empty, I wouldn't have gone to the National Health Insurance
to take the card at all.
To take the card. Probably the money I used to pay for the card, I would have reserved that money in my pocket and go to a facility that will give me cash and carry services. But I have used that money to register under the National Health Insurance with the view that any time I am in need of that service, the service should be readily available for me.
So now, if this is the situation, would you then say that perhaps the doctors won't budge because they think that the public won't do anything? I mean, won't resort to the court to get this thing resolved?
Yeah, that's an unfortunate situation in this country, and it's very, very unfortunate because we are a country of laws, rule of law. We pride ourselves in Africa as one of the best democratic countries in Africa. And we are governed by rules of law. We enact those laws in Parliament, and we have agreed that we are going to go by those laws. So if if all of us could say that you're going to get up one day and throw out those laws, can you imagine the kind of life we'll be living? It will be a chaotic situation where there are no rules. Everybody, the powerful, the most powerful in society, will wipe out the weak in society because the law will not protect you and I. Because I go to the hospital with the mind that I will have my right to health care and right to life protected. Because I know I can be sick at any time. And you know, life is just one. Unfortunately, you don't have an alternative that at least you can afford to play with one, and then you know that you have a spare, just as a tire, your tire you have just shown, you have a spare tire when the one under the car is spoiled, you go for the spare tire. Life, we don't have it. So you don't have an alternative. You don't have any choice. So therefore, I have insured myself under the National Health Insurance to protect my life. So therefore, when I show up at the hospital and my life is not protected, then you have violated my right to life and the right to health care.
So, but that's also to say that the doctors don't also have a right to ask for what they think is rightfully theirs.
They do. Doctors have the right to ask for condition of service. In fact, the 1992 Constitution guaranteed equal work, equal pay, and condition of service. In fact, when you employ somebody, when you are an employer, you employ somebody, it is your responsibility to provide the person with all that is necessary for the person to effectively deliver on his job. So therefore, doctors have the right to ask for things that will enhance their performance. Mind you, the enhancement of their performance is good for you and I.
Great.
When we show up at the hospital, when the doctor is cheerful, the doctor is well catered for, you show up at the hospital and the doctor is at its best. Therefore, you also have quality healthcare. You have an attention from the doctor. You have the best treatment from the doctor. Then your right to life is enhanced. Your right to healthcare is also enhanced. Therefore, the employer has that responsibility. Therefore, I also have the responsibility to go out there and register under the health insurance or any other form of insurance so that I show up at this hospital and I am taken care of.
What would you advise the public to sue government first or to sue the GME?
I will go to the court, asking the court to bring all the stakeholders, those whose responsibilities it is to give me health care. to provide answers why they were not at the hospital. First, I would like the court to ask the major player, which is the government. Actually, the government under the authority of the National Health Authority gave me the National Health Insurance card. And he told me that I could show up in any hospital registered under the National Health Insurance as a health provider to provide me with health care. So the court will ask that person, why haven't you provided the health care? Then that person will answer to say that, oh, I have employed a doctor to attend to you. The doctor did not show up. Okay, you have to explain why the doctor did not show up. Is it that the doctors has violated the right between, or the agreement between the employer and the doctor, to the extent that in an extension, that has violated my right to health care? Okay. So the court will have to make a pronouncement on that.
Okay. Quickly, you hold it. Let me quickly take this particular issue of the salaries of doctors. We are told that the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations has erected heads of public hospitals nationwide to take a head count of doctors on duty to calculate their salaries. Now, we're told again that the sector minister is hoping the heads of hospitals will complete the head count by the end of this week.
Already, negotiations between the two feeding parties have reached a deadlock. Striking doctors have described the government proposal as the worst, aimed at undermining their interest. Almost 3 weeks since the doctors declared a strike on their conditions of service, government is yet to reach an understanding with them. The striking doctors have scheduled a meeting for Friday, August 14, to decide on their mass resignation. The Minister of Employment has again described the strike as illegal and has directed heads of public hospitals to take head count of the doctors to calculate their salaries.
No, we've directed that heads of institutions and agencies must take a roll call of persons who are at work and working, and those who are unable to come to work attributable to strike action. We intend to fully enforce the provisions of the Labour Act. The directive have been given, so I expect that they will compile the data and share it with us and with the Ministry of Health, and will take consequential action.
However, the Deputy General Secretary of ICU, Morgan Ayawin, has impressed on government not to withhold the salaries of the striking doctors.
If you embark on an action which is legal, can you say that you're going to stop the payment of salaries? No. So we must sit down and then look at it. Let us determine whether this action is illegal or not illegal. And the only institution that has the adjudication power to determine is the National Labour Commission.
The sector minister, Haruna Idrisu, again called for negotiations to resume.
We've worked on a 12-chapter document which was championed and chaired by the GMA. We only are in contention on Chapter 4, which deals with remuneration and allowances payable. It means that we are in harmony with them, with the rest of the chapter, and we remain committed to signing it with them. Accordingly, we'll ask them to call off the illegal strike action, or they must be prepared to pay the ultimate price for wanting to continue to be on strike.
In another development, the national tripartite has indicated that it would conclude negotiations on the minimum wage and base pay by September 30.
Right, so let me speak to Mr. Austin Game. He's a Labour expert. He's been quite talking about this issue, but let's tonight focus on the information coming out that government is asking that public sector workers who are not working won't get their salaries. Mr. Game, grateful you're joining us again tonight. Now, government simply says it is implementing certain regulations under the Labor Act that suggests or says that, well, if you embark on a legal strike, you can't be paid. What do you make of this? I've lost Mr. Austin Game there. We'll get him back on the phone lines very soon. But let me come back to this. Mr. Agbuche is still here. Now, so government can be taken on, and you also think that the doctors can also be taken on. I'll come back to you again to talk about this, but Mr. Game is back on the phone lines. Mr. Game, I was asking that government says it is simply implementing some regulations under the Labor Act that says that if you embark on a legal strike, you don't get salaries for the days you stayed away from work. What do you make of it?
Well, thank you and good evening to your listeners. The reality is that is what the labor law states. We have not been applying it as it should be. And like I said somewhere yesterday, I'm pleasantly surprised that if the employer has mustered courage to begin to implement what the law states. So if they have the courage to do it, then that is a bold step taken. It may sound harsh to some people. It may sound as though they are further aggravating the situation, but that is the position of the law. I've heard many of us said in this country, Ghana, that our laws are good, but we don't implement it. If it's been implemented, it's a problem. If you don't implement, it's a problem. So I am pleasantly surprised that they have the boldness to implement it, and that's quite commendable.
But what about the arguments that, well, it is going to worsen an already volatile situation, and that the employment ministry shouldn't have gone there at all? Let's try and resolve the impasse, perhaps before we talk about that.
Well, that is traditional thinking. I mean, that is normal with Ghanaians. That's why we have come gradually to where we've come to. So let's implement our laws. It's a problem. You don't implement it, it's a problem. So it's like between the devil and the deep blue sea. So do we want our laws implemented? If yes, then that is what they are doing. The question of aggravating the situation is to be expected that is what people will say. But unfortunately, it's not the best. If you don't work, traditionally, no contribution, no job. Even the scriptures are very clear that if you don't work, you don't eat. But Ghana is always bedeviled with this kind of situation. No government is capable of implementing any law fully. If you implement it, problem. I think this is a bold step, and the government must be commended as a good employer.
Let me pick your brains on this. Who determines what is legal and what is illegal here in this particular context of the doctors? Now, government says it is an illegal strike. Who has the mandate to determine whether it is legal or illegal?
Well, fortunately, in this particular case, it's a lot more easier because the GMA publicly announced that they were withdrawing OPD, they were withdrawing what you want to call emergency services. They publicly announced it. It didn't take anybody to say it. They themselves said it. And you have asked many people, including they themselves, questions to that effect. So it's not even being determined by the employer. They themselves determined it. On top of that, the other facts are very clear. At the facility level, those who went actually to actively work might have registered their presence at the workplace. And the employer has his representatives at the workplace. So they will be able to have record as to those who have really gone to work. And so they can be exempted. And those who have not gone to do anything clearly are the people they are talking about here. But as to the pronouncement, they themselves said it.
What about the argument that it is the Labour Commission should be the body to determine whether the strike by the doctors is legal or illegal?
Well, Bright, it's on record that I have said this time and time again to everybody. I have seen it on the various nets. The point is that either side can go to Labour Commission and report the conduct of either party in this matter. The employer, being government, has the right to go to the National Labour Commission tomorrow morning and submit his complaints to the Labour Commission for an affirmation. You don't need to go to the court. It is the Labour Commission that determines that the strike is illegal. If they go there, they can confirm it. It's been said now by the employer that all the people have said they have carried it to the letter, and so if you haven't worked, then of course, and we all see on your television and many other networks that people are being turned around. They go for services and they don't get it. They have to all go and queue in police or military hospital or some private hospital. So clearly there is evidence that something is being done, but it's for them to take steps to go and actualize it by reporting the matter formally to the National Labour Commission.
Should government go to court over this?
Actually, if you want to be very specific in industrial relations balance, the first port of call is the National Labour Commission and not the court. If I were to be a judge and you should bring any such case before me, I would dismiss you and ask you to go to the first place of call, and that is the National Labour Commission. That is what we expect to be done in this country as far as Act 651 is concerned. But we are not mindful about these things too much, and so people sometimes find solace in going to the court. Fine, you can go there, but if there is a judge that is really, really dutiful, I expect the judge to tell you that go to the National Labour Commission first. So that is the principal place to go.
Finally, we're getting, but the appeals are coming in. The president once again has made the appeal on Accra-based radio station, asking the doctors to go back, though he says the strike is illegal. Friday, the doctors have said they will take a decision. How sure, or perhaps, how do you think we could get to a point of understanding between the employer and the employee? Is this possible from where you sit, from the interactions that have gone on, from the comments from government, from the comment from the doctors? We're expecting Friday, August, a big announcement. Do you see a way out before Friday or on that Friday?
Well, to be honest, until this evening, I'm far away from Accra Tema. I'm somewhere working with my clients. But from what I have been following all along, I had the impression that come Friday, the doctors are going to rescind their decision. As of this evening, following the call I received from you people for this conversation, I think that there might be some hardened voices in their midst, saying that let's see how it may look like. Let's continue. But the point is that the doctors individually, the 2,800 or so, individually have been written to. So a class action will not be accepted in circumstances like this as far as human resource management practices are concerned. You have to write an individual letter saying that you have resigned from the place of work. You have severed legal working relationship with your employer without notice, and that you are going away. That is what they could do in the extreme situation. GMA cannot write letter for and on behalf of the 2,800 people as if they wrote their appointment letter of the individuals. So it's a very difficult scenario because everybody has a parent, even though people are of age. Everybody has a family, so they will have to decide together with their wives and their husbands and all families as to whether this is the wise step to take. The employer did not in the first place say that resign. they offered to resign. And they've carried out the first step, second step, and we are left with the third step. If they want to go, they will have to put in a resignation letter that they are going. But I think, knowing who they are wise people. Many other bodies have appealed to them. I expect that they will listen to the appeal. I was talking to one of them privately on my phone the last time. Look, and send a text message to confirm it. Look, you people should go back to work and stop the strike, and then you go and negotiate and report the conduct of the employer to the National Labour Commission for further action. And so all this, plus the Christian Council also came in, though belated, and many others have come in to talk about it. I think it's enough. Otherwise, I think the employer is tired because people are being put to test. People's lives have been lost. A lot of things have happened, and so the employer is tired. He no longer can carry on with this kind of mess. That's perhaps the reason why they are taking the hard line.
I'm grateful, Mr. Austin Game, for speaking to me. Austin Game is a labor consultant and speaks a lot about labor. Let me come back to the studio and do the wrap up. Mr. Agbuche, so from what Mr. Game has said, instead of perhaps the public insisting that, well, we should take the employer or the employee on, dialoguing is key, but how can the public become part of the whole process of getting the doctors and the government to come to a compromise and get things put right?
I think listening to a lot of people, ordinary people, they want the doctors to get back to the hospital and work and save life. Because as I said, life is only one. You don't have an alternative. They are also insisting that the government should do everything within its means to get the doctors back to the hospital to work. Personally, I don't think the doctors will resign. I don't think so. That would be
the threat. You don't think they want to do that?
The most disastrous thing that will ever happen to a nation of which the doctors are stakeholders. The doctors are not people that were cajoled from the moon to come to Ghana. They are Ghanaian, born here. They belong to the family. So they are part and parcel of the development of this nation. So they will not sit down and watch this nation being scattered because of condition of service. They wouldn't do that. They will not do that. So I don't believe that the doctors will resign. They will not resign because you can't run away from your own home and say that my home is not good. So you are going to somebody's home. You go there, you get filled, you eat and do everything. You come back home and sleep in an empty home. The doctors will have to join all of us to build this country. And they are not going anywhere. And
you think that government, as a responsibility, should also be ready to get down and speak to the doctors?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Doctors are part and parcel of the government. We are all government. So we all have to put our heads together. You see, sometimes you want to enjoy certain privileges. But you also have to look at it and say, in the larger content, how are we all going to share this cake so that everybody will get a share of it? The doctors are a fraction of the bigger community called Ghana. So they are part of us. So they will have to understand us as well, that we need them and they need us. I'm sure if there are no patients, there wouldn't be doctors. If there are no criminals, there wouldn't be police officers. If there's no need for news, you wouldn't be here. So we need each other. And the doctors are not going anywhere. They are not going anywhere.
You want them to stay here?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Samuel Agbuche is a human rights activist and the executive director of IDE. Grateful you decided to join us in the studio. That's our wrapping up for the big one.